Here's how they line up.
Tony Kanaan, São Paulo, Brazil.
Michael Andretti, Nazareth, Pennsylvania.
Dario, Franchitti, Edinburgh, Scotland.
Kenny Brack from Karlstad, Sweden.
And this is the start of the end of a great career. Michael Andretti has announced his retirement this year. And each race up until Indy, which will be his last race as per his announcement, he will be allowed ceremoniously to move out in front of the rest of the field and acknowledge the fans and their cheers in his long career. 15 seasons. The field now lines up. Tony Kanaan sits on the pole. You look from Sam Hornish Jr.'s car.
Paul, it makes you wonder if there's any team orders here. Michael Andretti being the team owner also on the outside pole.
We've seen that before, a little power when you're both the team owner and the driver. Pace picks up. We look for the flag. And with the green out, the Indy Racing League is underway for 2003. Tony Kanaan stays low. Michael comes out in front.
And Castro Neves was running that high line in practice this morning in warm-up. He made good use of it there, carrying the speed on the outside.
Now Kanaan is going to take a look inside of Castro Neves. DeFerrin dropped in behind Tony Kanaan. And there comes the rest of the field.
It's been a long winter, Paul. All these guys have been chomping at the bit to get out here. A lot of testing going on with a test in the West out in California and Phoenix and here at Homestead. A lot of jittery guys in the drivers' meeting today.
So under yellow, Andretti is the leader. Castro Neves in second. Tony Kanaan, the pole sitter, third. Andretti will be the leader as they come back to green flag. Green to the front car is green to the field. And Castro Neves tries to take advantage of it. So does Tony Kanaan. That's Kanaan down low. Again, he has to backpedal out of it, but Castro Neves stays with it. Oh, shades of last season.
Already, Paul, going into turn one so early, 185 miles an hour probably on that restart, just inches away.
And Castro Neves gets it high. Loses momentum, has to back out of it. Kanaan comes into second. DeFerrin now trying his teammate.
Paul, you were speculating as to whether Michael Andretti's pass at Tony Kanaan on the original start was by design and under team orders. No way. Tony Kanaan wants back to the front as he dips to the inside of his owner.
And he's going to try it again. This time he comes through cleanly. By the way, one of the things to look for, beside the helmet, to tell the difference in those two cars, is the red camera pod on top. Here comes DeFerrin, Castro Neves and DeFerrin both. Castro Neves works the back end of Andretti. DeFerrin's out in front of him.
Now, Paul, the same thing again we saw that happened to Michael just a little bit ago, or to Castro Neves a moment ago. If you get off the throttle, you lose your momentum. There's only one groove around this racetrack most times, with the exception of Marlboro cars. We keep seeing them try the high side. It's very impressive this early on in the race.
Guys, it's somewhat ironic that they told the Penske drivers just before that pass to slot in behind those two cars of Andretti team racing in front of them. But no, these guys want to go racing it. Scott, I think you hit it right on the head. Everybody is so anxious, you can't hold back.
Oh, the driver meeting this morning, Gary, I will tell you, there was a lot of nervous drivers, fidgety drivers sitting there. Their legs were going, sitting on the chairs. And it's interesting to note that one of the guys that's out front right now and has been running out front with Michael and the group, all those guys were very excited. You could just look at it in their eyes to see it.
And Scott, the call has already come out to the lead team. Michael Andretti and Tony Kanaan both have been cautioned. Take care of those tires.
Yes, so much though thus far for that word patience. Kanaan, DeFerrin, Andretti. Kanaan, DeFerrin, Andretti, Castro Neves, Sharp. Those are the top five. The heat is burning down on this track. Little shady area there, but for the most part, that shade comes from some buildup that down here in South Florida, they also know can bring a very quick shower. So that's got to also go into the thinking of the teams. The leader remains Tony Kanaan in his Honda. 26 laps already into the record book. Tony Kanaan, the pole sitter, finally was able to get past his teammate and car owner Michael Andretti. He has the lead right now. Jill DeFerrin is about a second and a half back. Then comes Andretti Castroneves and Scott Sharp, who has been moving steadily forward. If you're keeping track of Buddy Rice, you're probably going to see him in a second because he has already been lapped in this field. What a surprise that is. Buddy Rice running 19th right now.
Outside, still out there, clear.
Sam works on Dario Franchitti.
That was the voice of Pancho Carter, who really settles Sam down. Sam, minimal experience, a lot of people said, coming into the IRL, but he's won the last 2 championships, and he's won the last 2 races here, Paul.
Now Dixon and Franchitti go side by side. Dixon takes him pretty easily. At the front, it remains Tony Kanaan, Jill DeFerrin, and Michael Andretti. 1, 2, 3. We'll be back after this. And a word from our ABC stations. You're watching ABC Sports Championship Television. Well, coming up with a lot of traffic in front of him is Tony Kanaan. There he is, the 11 car, the leader of the race. Jill DeFerrin is in second, and Elio Castroneves is able to get around Michael Andretti and now sits in third place with Scott Sharp remaining in fifth. It's Tony Kanaan that is out in front. I'm Paul Page. The whole gang is here. We're ready for what should be a great season of racing. A lot of fun. I think that's really the key word. Jill DeFerrin now beginning to close on Tony Kanaan, the leader. There's Kanaan. That's DeFerrin right behind him as they begin to work traffic. So the story now on Michael Andretti. He runs in 4th place.
The reason, Paul, that he has faded just a bit is the tires. The performance curve has dropped off. He has radioed to his crew, and they have radioed back to him. Look, the window is open. See if you can nurse another 10 laps out of this set of tires, and then we'll slap a new set of Firehawks in on the first pit stop.
Well, they were trying, most of the teams, to get to at least the 50th lap if possible. I would think, Scott, that I would want to err on the low side of that first race, first time out. A lot of new engines, a lot of new equipment.
These tires are doing a wonderful job right now.
Just ahead of the leader, Tony Kanaan, with DeFerrin closing in on him. That's Robbie Buell, the dry Reinbold entry. And then a whole group, including famous number 14. And that's 4.
AJ Foyt, the fourth. And Paul, he looks so young.
He gets trapped, and DeFerrin takes advantage of it. So there's experience in the series paying off for DeFerrin.
Right here, he's been all over.
Boy, DeFerrin's gone now. Once Tony got trapped back there, it took him a while. Yamaha lap leaders to this point. Kanaan has led the most. Didn't lead the first one, though. That honor went to his owner and teammate, Michael Andretti. And now with DeFerrin coming around Kanaan, he begins to ratchet up the numbers.
Paul, you're going to begin to see a lot of the front runners begin to drop off speed-wise. They've run to the outside of the envelope of the tire performance curve. All the chatter on the radios is how close they want to run it before they pull onto pit road. One of the early pit stops, of course, will be Robbie Buell right now. But that's the case for Tony Kanaan. They're working the weight jacker, trying to squeeze as many laps as possible before they take on 35 gallons of fuel.
Well, just past the 51st lap. Fight for second place. Castroneves on screen right. Around Kanaan into second.
Now, Paul, if those tires were a little fresher on the car, you probably would have seen Kanaan make a little bit more resistance to that, but he knows he doesn't have much grip.
So it was just a statement, really. I can do this.
Well, what a driver's doing right now, he might think that Kanaan's going to come in about the same time as his. He wants to be in the pit lane before Kanaan. A quick note, Paul, to tell you something about the Penske cars. If there is no changes on the cars, no wing adjustments, then they're probably pretty happy with the car, how it's working at this point.
The 11 car, that's Tony Kanaan. And now on the pit road, his teammate, car owner Michael Andretti, number 7.
Michael Andretti has asked for a chassis adjustment, so watch the right front tire changer. If he goes towards the nose of the car, and they do, they make an adjustment on the front wing. Andretti is running now. His teammate is being called onto pit road. He was your leader, Tony Kanaan. Look for a chassis adjustment as well from the 7-Eleven Kanaan crew.
So Michael makes it to lap 60. That's Tora Takagi that headed out in front of him. Here comes Tony Kanaan.
These cars take 35 gallons of methanol. The fueling has begun. Oftentimes you can change all 4 tires before the fueling is complete. They take a half turn out of the front wing for Tony Kanaan. They complete. He is off and away.
And with that stop, 61 laps now complete. Kanaan back to the fight. And as we cycle through these pit stops, Kenny Brack will pick up the lead. DeFerrin in second. Tony Kanaan gets around Scheckter. Michael Andretti closes on Helio Castroneves. Castroneves, number 3, the red and white car. And that green and white car right behind him, that's Michael Andretti. It has a red camera pod and red rear view mirrors, so you can hopefully help identify it and make it distinctive from Tony Kanaan's car. Remains third place. Jack?
And Paul, you know Michael Andretti is also the co-owner of Tony Kanaan and Dario Franchitti's cars. During that last caution period, didn't talk a lot about how his car was doing, but he wanted from the other 2 crews a complete breakdown on the performance of Kanaan and Franchitti. I guess during that pit stop, during that yellow, he was playing owners rather than drivers.
A role that Michael Andretti says he likes, and therein, by the way, lies what is, at least in theory, the advantage of a multi-car team. You can get all that data coming in. On the other hand, Sam Hornish and the Pennzoil Panther team have kind of disproved that by running a 1-car team to 2 championships. Tony Kanaan, he's been having his problems, now 9th, Jack.
Well, that was because, as we showed on the onboard, he stalled his car, and the reason he says is because the engine idle on the Honda is set so low. Got to remember that the pit stalls here are 17 feet, 9 inches wide by 39 feet long. When you go to park your SUV at the shopping mall, you've got a 9-foot by 17-foot space.
Boy, was that good. 3 wide, they came flying through that corner. Teammates. That's Franchitti in the blue, red, and white car. And Tony Kanaan in the green and white car, just ahead of him. Kanaan is 8th. Franchitti now dropped to 9th. There's DeFerrin. Castroneves 2nd. And then Andretti and Scott Dixon. That's the battle we look at right now. Battle for 3rd. We said it's hot. Yep, 92.
Well, Paul, that's up from the 86 and then down from the 94 that we started with, and I can see the track temperature still up around 112 degrees, so the ambient's cooling off, but the track temperature is still going to be brutal for wear on these tires.
Sharp working on Michael now. Remember, as we said, it's starting too, a lot of new stuff here. Different engines, brand new chassis, new teams, new drivers, and yet we've had only 2 incidents with the wall. Mayer and Jacques Lazier, and now Jacques is with Jack Arute.
And Jacques, I know it's difficult without one's hands to be able to explain what happened, but take us through it.
Well, unfortunately, we had a car that with the setup, it seemed like whenever we came off a yellow or had a heat cycle on tires, that the car would come out and be real loose. And unfortunately, we were just coming to the end of our fuel window. The car got underneath me. It was a good, clean pass, but unfortunately, the car went a little loose. I caught it, and then, but I was just up in the marbles along for the ride.
What about the track conditions overall, Jacques? Good, mediocre, bad?
I think the track conditions were actually pretty good. I think more than anything.
So with Jill DeFerrin as the leader, there's our Yamaha lap leader after 117 laps. Nothing's changed up front. DeFerrin, Catherine Evans, Dixon. But Sharp has really been working on Michael Andretti.
You can see the different lines, Paul, right there. Getting into the turns, he's working them, trying to find some clean air through the turns so he can carry some speed. He's been looking down here in turn 1 all day, and there he goes and makes a nice, clean move.
Now this time it worked very well. You thought that he was working better in 3 and 4 and Michael better in 1 and 2.
It seemed like that earlier, but certainly what ended up happening here, and you can hear his spotter coming along saying great patience. That setup was done back in turns 3 and 4, and he got the dividend down there in turn 1.
So Sharp still remains a factor, running in 4th. Ahead of him, Scott Dixon.
The neat thing I see right now is it's a G-force leading this field. Everybody thought the car was not going to be competitive on this track that needed a lot of grip.
That little move by Scott was costly. Got in there, lost momentum. Kanaan got around him. But a great restart for Dixon. Yamaha lap leaders thus far. Again, DeFerrin has the majority. But right now, he doesn't have the lead. He's second. Meantime, Kanaan, Sharp, Andretti set another way. Sharp is in the middle of a 7-Eleven sandwich. The 2 Andretti cars. There's Tony Kanaan, who has the Siemens fastest lap of the race thus far at 195 miles an hour. Yamaha lap leaders at 192 laps. DeFerrin holds the most. He's trying to get back in front. Now half a second behind Scott Dixon.